Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, a podcast to inspire men on their healing journey and give practical tools to use in everyday life for mental and emotional support. I'm your host, Aaron Cartwright. So welcome back to the Hearts of Men podcast. I have a very special guest, Russell Manser. Russell Manser used to be a bank robber and prison escapee in the 80s and 90s and did 23 years in prison across 3 Australian states. Now, having turned his life around, he talks openly to interesting people about trauma, survival, transformation, and hope. Russell, thank you for coming on. This is the second time. The first time didn't actually work, so I appreciate you coming on again.
No worries. Hey, listen, thanks for having me. I thought we done a crack at the first time, but I'm sure we'll do another one again.
Yeah, it was really good. There was really good moments. The voice kept cracking up. So,
all good.
Like I said in the first episode, I seen you on the Spanian podcast. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, maybe longer. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I watched it and I listened to your story. And I don't really listen to podcasts. I listened to first 15, 20 minutes, but yours I was glued the whole way, and the hour, whatever you were there for. It went really quick, and the reason is because your story is captivating. You've been through horrendous shit that no boy should ever go through, but also what the way you've come out of it and what you're doing now is really inspirational. So when I started this podcast, there was 2 people in mind, my best mate who's already been on, and it was you. So I'm really proud to have you on. So could we start with your beginnings and tell people how you grew up and what type of kid you were, and maybe first time you went into the boys' home? And
Not a problem. Look, my name's Russell Manser. I'm the youngest son of 6. My parents are English immigrants. They came out as 10-pound poms in 1965. Had 3 brothers and a sister who were born Liverpool, England. Me and my brother were born Liverpool, Australia. And I grew up in Mount Druitt, a place, western suburbs of Sydney, a housing commission area, low socio-economic area. And man, I was like, the people there were just salt of the earth type people, and we all had each other's backs. And I think what happened, there was a couple of things you are going to be. You're not going to be a factory worker or a tradesman at best. And tradesmen back in those days ain't on the money that they're on today. It was just, you know what I mean? That was the best you're going to achieve as being a tradesman. And from an early age, I was I had an awareness, you know what I mean? And I used to see people up at the early mornings, up at the bus stops going to work in their factory jobs. And, that didn't look exciting to me. And, I was a kid that was always looking for excitement. And, you know what I mean? I don't come from a dysfunctional family like a lot of people from my similar background. My parents were both workers. My mum worked night shift in a plastic factory. My dad worked in a glass factory during the day. And, I was self-sufficient from a young age. At 5 years old, I was cooking my own meals and that sort of stuff because, my mum was either sleeping. Beautiful, they were just to put bread on the table for us. So, I was always grateful for the hard work that my parents that they did to keep us, a shelter over our heads. And I used to see the criminals in my area, and they were the ones that looked like they were doing all right in life. They had the fast cars, the good clothes, the jewelry. Their houses were all decked out with all the good stuff. It'd be a housing commission house, and these people, the lengths they would go to doing like fucking new kitchens and fucking bathrooms and that sort of stuff. So they looked like they were living a 5-star life, you know what I mean? But it was transient, so to speak, you know what I mean? Because these people would come home from jail after long periods of time away, be home for 12, 18 months at best, and you'd see the police cars turn up their house and they'll take them away. Next minute, the wife and kids are at the bus stop early in the morning making their way to Parramatta Jail or Long Bay Prison to visit dad or brother or son or whatever it was. And, but still, I never overlooked that. It looked like they were going on some fucking tour of duty because, the crims used to come home from prison and they were treated like return war heroes, especially if they never told or give up or give evidence against their friends and they stuck solid and, never told on people that, that had done the robberies or help them in any way. So those people were treated, war heroes, godlike type people. And, I wanted to be like one. I can remember, I can remember saying to my dad, I remember one driving around area in a Jag driving past, and I said, "Oh man, that's what I want to do." My dad said he's a drug dealer. I said, "Well, whatever they are, I want to be like them. I don't want to be like I don't want to be like fucking old mate, fucking carrying his work bag with a dead set, fucking ugly fucking look on his face because he'd had to go and work 12 hours in a factory to barely make ends meet, you know." So and that's what I aspired. My first trouble with the law, I was 14, 15 years old, and I stole a car in Parramatta and got on a car chase. And back in them days, they didn't have the diversion programs like they have today. You know what I mean? You got in trouble once back then, they locked you straight up. And unfortunately for me, I was sent to the Darrick Boys Home, which is the subject of a 60-minute story because of the systemic sexual and physical abuse that took place there. And unfortunately for me, I didn't escape that abuse. So I spent a bit of time. I was sexually abused at Darrick, and it left a void in me that could only be filled by drug use and stuff like that. And but also done an apprenticeship out of Darrick. We associated with kids from the city, and they were more escalated and advanced in their way of offending. They used to steal Porsches and break in the sports stores, and you know what I mean. And I come out, it was like the song Copperhead Road, Steve Earle's Copperhead Road. I come home with a brand new plan, and I come home from Darrick, and I'd been to college for like 6 months. I'd learned all these different ways to do crime, and my crime escalated. I started stealing Porsches, luxury Porsches from affluent areas, and we used to steal a car, make our way over these North Shore and steal Porsches and Mercedes, more so Porsches because they're so easy to steal. You can steal a Porsche in 40 seconds from start to finish. And and long story short, I got in a chase in a Porsche from Whale Beach to Mossman, and it was the first time the police ever used a police helicopter to pursue a high-speed chase. And I remember driving along French's Forest Road, which in the day was a really dark road, and we opened the sunroof, and here was this helicopter up top of us, and I'd never heard of that sort of thing before. But anyway, long story short, we were caught and apprehended swimming in the Sydney Harbour trying to escape, and by the water police. And we went before Judge Blackmore, who's the subject of a few dodgy things against children himself. And Judge Blackmore stipulated that he was going to send me to an adult prison, and it was a deterrent from a kid from Mount Druitt. These were his sentencing comments. So I didn't think, coming from Mount Druitt was a crime, but it was on this occasion. And the judge sentenced me to 12 months in prison and stipulated to be served in an adult prison as a deterrent for the future reoffending. And I think Judge Nostradamus, as I call him, got it wrong. His prediction didn't turn out that way. And I was sent to 1 wing prison at Long Bay that housed some of the worst degenerates in the country at the time, including a necrophiliac who sexually abused me. And that night, I was put in a cell with 2 convicted pedophiles, and I was told to I was carried a mattress, and I was subjected to some strip searching with some by officers, which is some real serious derogatory comments about sexuality and what was going to happen to me, and which was unwarranted and fucking very sickening, to be quite honest. And that night I was sexually abused, and sexually abused that night, and my co-accused was in another cell, and he was sexually abused that night, yeah, fucking. It was just that it sent me on a trajectory. I was introduced the next day. I was sexually abused by a bloke who was a necrophiliac, which is a person who has sex with dead bodies, and he introduced me to heroin because he was just one of those weasels that didn't want me saying anything, and he sexually abused me, introduced me to heroin, and he was pretty good at, he told me where I could get it. It was like he just set me on this plan, and you go to Cabramatta and you can get this, and I eventually got out of lockup with a taste for heroin, and it was the only thing that could fill that void, that emptiness that I felt. And instead of feeling guilty and shame, and watch, have a shot of heroin, and all of those feelings and things that were haunting me and the memories of the abuse would dissipate. And and then I don't know. and then I had to go back because heroin's a costly thing. You don't get it for free, so I went back to reoffending. This time I broke into a series of department stores. At the time it was Gross Brothers. Today it's David Jones and Meyer, and then I got pinched for about 9 break and enters. And but this time I went back to prison, and I was housed in a mainstream prison. Originally, when I was sent there, I was housed with pedophiles for my own protection. I was told when I was as underage, because of my age, I was housed with pedophiles for my own protection. And
so people know. So the first bit was 14. You got sexually abused in that boys' home.
yeah, yeah, 14, 15, I think it was, and then
And 16 in the adult jail. You
yeah,
weren't 16.
they sent us to an adult prison at the age of 16, turning 17, and it was unwarranted. I've done some research on that, and it was illegal what they did to me. It was illegal what they did to me, and the judge that actually sentenced me has been accused of fucking some child abuse stuff himself. So of recent years has been accused of some child abuse stuff himself. So you know what I mean? It makes sense now what he was. He thought that was a good idea that I'd be sexually abused, and so yeah. So I was eventually released. Just 17, turning 18, I think it was. And then by the time I was 18, 19, I was back in prison, but this time in a mainstream prison. And I wasn't sexually abused there, and I was not even it didn't even come close to happening because it wasn't happening there. It was really frowned upon, hurting children. And so I think back then, why didn't they house me in a place where I was safe? They had no intentions. They wanted that to happen to me. It was systemic.
Do you think, Russell, as you're talking, do you think now looking back it kind of feels like there's some sick, twisted fucking thing going on with
100% there was. That was all tied in together. Back then, a lot of these people that were involved in the boys' home system, the court system have been accused of themselves. So it was, yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah.
Definitely was. And
I've also heard you talk about in another podcast where Durrick Boys Home? Durrick Boys Home was kind of like, in a way, it was hide out, like in a way, like.
Oh man, we used to of a night time. I used to see men in night, like I just called a dog box in the night office that I'd never seen there before. Like I think it was a pedophile ring. I think something was going on there. But there used to be people coming and going in them offices all night long, and kids going into the ablution slush shower blocks. So I think there was a little bit more nefarious to that place than it was ever reported to. So that's was not a nice place, and I know it done a lot of damage to fucking young, vulnerable children. There's no doubt about it, and it's come out in their behaviours later on in life. Some of these kids turn out to be some really violent, fucking dangerous people. You know what I mean? And I have no doubt, and no one's ever wanted to look back and rewind the tapes and say, "Hey, man, what made you so bad? What made you so bad?" And so. I fast forward on back to Long Bay, this time in a mainstream prison, and here I am. I'm drawn to the armed robbers. I'm drawn to the armed robbers, and I wanted to know everything about armed robberies. I was doing the way I was looking. I was doing my apprenticeship to get out and become a bank robber. I had no intentions whatsoever of addressing my offending behaviour, nor was there an opportunity to do it. And then, and I done my apprenticeship. I talked to all the bank robbers. I learned every little thing, where you park. And it's funny because there's a bloke standing in the background here right now that I've done my first bank robbery with. And I won't tell you because he never got pinched with it, so I'll beat him out of it.
Very modern.
But it was a good lot. I had a lot of the bank robbers try to talk me out of it too, mate, saying you don't want this life. And in particular, an old bloke called Ray Johnson. I was sitting down. I can recall it like it was just yesterday. I was sitting next to him in a yard in Goulburn, and I said, "Ray, what about these bank robberies? How do I go about it?" And he goes, "Well, you get a job on the council." And I said, "Yeah, okay, I want you to use the council truck to put the banks under surveillance." He goes, "Mate, you just don't do them." He said, "Mate, it's a lonely old life of a bank robber." And those words echoed in my head for a long time after he said them. I can remember sitting in jail years later, and fucking haunt me late at night, you know. And but you know, I got out after about 2.5 years. I was sentenced to 11 years for a non-parole period of 4 years for breaking enters. You know, mate, I've never heard a pedophile or anything get close to that sort of sense. But that was under Remission Act, so for good behaviour. On a 4-year non-parole period, bottom I'd done 2.5 years, so I got 18 months remission, and that's all changed since in 1987. Another pedophile introduced truth in sentencing, meaning whatever you got, you did. You know, Michael Yabsley introduced that. So, you know, and I got out and I worked, and I was using heroin on weekends, and with my mate that's here now, me and him used to go night clubbing, and you know, he worked and I worked, and we'd catch up, and then you know, and then one day we decided to fucking knock one out. Decided to do a bank robbery, and
it was your first time for both of you? First?
Yeah, but first time for both of us. And you know, and I fucking rocked in on. And I said to him, I said, "Fucking, I want to do this. I want to run in on my own." And I ran in on my own, and I bought a knife from Salvos for about $4.90. It was a better investment than crypto. We got for $4.90. We got a $17,000 return.
Amazing.
So I knew how to invest from a young age, and and anyway, long story short, it was funny because on our way home, every bank robber, like I know both of us are shoe fanatics, and we decided to go and buy a pair of shoes. And so where we parked the car, and we reversed the car in, and we're about to go in and buy some shoes. And all of a sudden, there's these fucking coppers and that running at us. We're thinking, fuck, we're gone. We're, you know, first one and we're gone. Then they ran straight past us.
Jesus.
They ran straight past us, and apparently a bank robbery had taken place where we just fucking parked. And someone else had, but you know, it was always my thing. I never ever shit on my own area, so I never robbed banks in my own area. But you know, I always went to the affluent areas that can afford it. So I thought, and then you know, and then it just set me on a trajectory. About a week later, I'd done another one with another mate, and then went on a bit of a spree, as it were, and then it all come undone. You know, one of the boys I've done a bank robbery with, he never got the fucking balaclava on in time, so they got him on camera what he looked like, and I always thought something was going to come of it. You know, I always thought something was going to come of it, and long story short, you know, I waited about 3 months and he never got arrested, so I thought we must be away with it. But they had him under surveillance the whole time, waiting for us. So here I was turning up at his joint in nice cars and riding motorbikes and living in a nice unit. And they knew everything about us. And then, so one day they just turned up and fucking arrested me. And then that was an experience because, man, I realised who the real gangsters were at the time. And, you know, that was the tail end of Roger Rogerson, the corrupt Roger Rogerson's days. So, you know, and these blokes were gangsters. All they were interested in was my money. All they were interested in was robbing me for my money, and they found $30,000 in my roof cavity, and they split that up. Man, they were fucking arguing over who was going to, because I had a really good shoe collection, as I still have today, and they were arguing who was going to get my shoes, and fucking, you know, and even on the way out where I live, I had tennis rackets there. I didn't even play tennis, but there was tennis rackets in the complex there, and they were arguing, "Oh, my daughter's got up; she's on a tennis scholarship; she should have them." And old mates go, "My nephew's a fucking, I don't know, fucking some sort." It was just a different world. I'd never heard, like, I just didn't believe that sort of stuff was real until it started, because I heard the other armed robbers talking about, once you get these fucking arm hold up squad there, they're the worst, you know, and I just didn't believe it really was real until it happened to me. And so when we got to the cop shop, you know, they told me, look, we haven't got much evidence on you, but this is what's going to go down. If you don't admit to 3 bank robberies, we're going to charge your girl with accessory after the fact. And my girl at the time was a school teacher. My girlfriend was a school teacher in her first year of prac, and, you know, she had nothing to do, no knowledge of, and you know, I would have ruined her career. And so I signed myself up for 3, and I admitted to 3, and that they wouldn't have been. They knew they never had no evidence on me. They had evidence on one of the blokes, but not me, and they couldn't prove it was me. But anyways, long story short, you know, where I decided, fuck, I'm not sticking around, and you know, I decided to train. I wanted to train, and I wanted to have a crack at escaping, And you know, I'll talk about a lot about it now. It's amazing what you can achieve when you apply your mind to something with that right attitude. And I just developed the right attitude to escape. And I've actually converted that attitude from what I did that time into business today, and I can't lose, you know. And so life's, you know what I mean, and you know, and I talked to an old SAS bloke, and he devised a plan about. He said, "Mate, walk up to someone with a handful of salt." He said, "And throw it in their eyes and see what they do." And I just walked up unexpectedly because there's fucking plenty of people you could do it on. Threw it in their eyes and bang. First they did was cover up their face. So I thought that's all you need. You know, so on the day in question, everyone in those days used to have a handcuff key. Like these coppers and screws would put handcuffs on you. As soon as you jump in a prison van, everyone's got a handcuff key. Everyone takes them off. It was the worst kept secret ever. And, you know, half the time before they put you in, they'd say, "I know when you get on, the handcuffs will be off. And when you get off, they'll be back on." And anyway, long story short, had a handcuff key, jumped on the truck that day, handcuffs off. As soon as they've unloaded us, come springing out of the van, fucking throwing salt, throwing punches. And that day we got lucky and we happened to get away. And it was funny because we come across this guy who was painting a house, and there was this one car in a unit block. It was the biggest shit heap you'll ever see. But so we knocked on the door and said, "Look, mate, we're in a bit of trouble. Can we take your car and we'll put some money?" He goes, "Yeah." And he spoke perfect English, you know, and we never laid a hand on him. And he come out and flicked about 1,000 kill switch on it and a club lock and a fucking just had everything on it. Took him 10 minutes to unlock it. Got his car. We drove off. And, you know, that night he was on the news with a neck brace on and an interpreter saying that we punched him and he kicked him. We never laid a hand on him. And he was compliant, if at least. And
did you have handcuffs on, or you got the handcuff key in?
We had them off. Yeah, we had them off.
Yeah.
Funny because that night we could see where we parked the car, there was 2 sets of handcuffs hanging off the rear view mirror where we left the car. It was on the news, and we were laughing our heads off sitting there watching these 2 sets of handcuffs. So we had one over the knuckles in case, you know, we had to do a bit of dusting. And then look, you know, and I went to Mount Druitt, you know what I mean? And the people there just harbored you, man. They loved us, you know. And we had 1,000 options where people who were going to keep us. And the first door I knocked on, the woman said, "Geez, you took your time getting here. They made the beds up. We got dinner on. There should be a decent feed here for you tonight." And it's just funny how. And my mate wasn't from there, and he goes, "Is this how everyone is from Mount Druitt?" I said, "They love a cream here, mate. Where the fuck?" And it was my turn to be the war hero. It was my turn to be the fucking good guy. And you know, and you could walk the streets, and everyone, like if the coppers, someone had whistled, the coppers are down the street, they're on their way. Everyone would mow. I reckon it'd be very similar for the Irish Catholics in Belfast. I reckon, or whatever. I reckon it'd be very similar how the IRA got treated. Just the coppers were the enemy, and we were the good guys. And you know, and you know, and we walked the streets, and fucking everyone was cheering us. "Yeah, good on you, fellas." You know what I mean? And my mate was going, and you know, and then we put out a message to get a kit. A kit was a guns, balaclavas, and some steel, you know, a couple of tools to steal cars with. And within 20 minutes, there was one at the door, you know, and that's how it rolled. And so went back and robbed the National Australia Bank at Turramurra, which I was on remand for robbing. And there was like a Vietnamese security guard. And when he turned around, I'm in his face again, and he'd seen me the first time, and he went, "Oh no," he said, "I'm going to lose my job." And I said, "You know the drill." Took his gun off him. And I'm actually talking to him while my color cues went over the counter to get the money. He goes, "Man, I'm going to lose my money." I said, "Don't worry, mate. I'll give you a reference." You know, I said, "Fucking." He says, I said, "It's fucking Christmas, mate. I'll make sure you get to keep your job." And he was just fucking. He couldn't believe how I was talking to him. And anyway, so on the way out, he had a 32 Browning 7-shot Browning pistol, and I give him his gun back, and he looked at me just fucking in shock. And I handed him. I said, "Here, mate, you're going to need this. I don't want you to lose your job." And then I just bolted, you know, and I looked around, and he's just looking at that gun that I've given him back and just couldn't fucking believe, you know, that he just got his gun back. And anyway, so we got away and, you know, went to the Hilton Hotel in Sydney. And back then it was just the first stages of when the Nike Just Do It campaign done. We went out spending all money on clothes. It was funny, you know, here we were plastered all over the papers and that. And fucking no one even noticed. We were in I don't even think it was Pitt Street Mall at the time in Sydney. It was just Pitt Street, more in sports stores, buying up clothes, staying at the Hilton. fucking ordering room service, and then the next day we flew over to Perth, and just had a ball over there for a couple of weeks, and then went up to Broome, Cable Beach Resort, and from Broome we flew over to Darwin. And our first night in Darwin, we're in a nightclub called the Bloody Good Drinkers Bar at the Frontier Hotel, and that's fucking all they are. That's them fucking rednecks up there. That's all I want to do is drink and fight, and I think root. But I don't know about that. I've never seen any of that. But anyway, so my co-accused Brett walks over to this girl and he goes, "Hey Russell, this is Tammy," and he goes, "Tammy's a bank manager, isn't she beautiful?" And I said, "She's gorgeous." And her parents were away in Bali, and she had a ski boat where my mate was really good at skiing, and so we just sort of went to her house and took over it, and got out the ski boat, went water skiing. But then we realised we were a bit short, and we were starting to run out of cash, and we're going to have to do another stick up, and so we decided to rob a bank in Darwin. We come from Sydney, and I wasn't used to some place. I just thought Darwin was a big place, but I didn't realise how small it was. And back then, sports stores had pump action shotguns. Even Kmart, I can recall when Kmart had shotguns, but back then you could go and buy a pump action shotgun from a sports store. So we spotted a sports store that had pump action shotguns. We broke into it that night. I got 4 shotguns. We went and stole a car the next day. Unfortunately, that car was the only yellow RX-7 in the whole of the Northern Territory. And the bloke who owned it was like some radio announcer, and everyone knew him as Jono or something like that. So we're driving around to rob this bank in this yellow RX-7, and everyone's waving at us, and everyone that waved at us was a potential witness, and we're waving back, and fucking, so we robbed this bank in the National Australia at Parap in Darwin, and, so we got back to this girl's house, and fucking news flash bank robbery, and I'm thinking, that wasn't the one we done. And she's saying, "Yeah, it's the one you done," and it was like, I just couldn't believe how much, and they were shutting out roadblocks, and it was crazy. Like, I'd never experienced something like that. Something that become, well, you rob a bank in Sydney, you don't even, it'd be lucky to make the newspaper the next day, let alone the front story on the news. And long story short, we sat it out about 2 or 3 days, and then we went to the airport. I took my mate to the airport. We're on 2 separate flights. We're going to meet up in Sydney, and I went to the airport with him, and I watched him get walked off the plane by 2 coppers, and they were looking for a bloke that had some tattoos on his knuckles, and they found him near him. And then I thought, fuck, so I'm not jumping on a plane, because I'm thinking they must be looking for me as well. Anyway, so I jumped in this girl's car, and I drove 400 k's to a place called Mataranka Springs. And on the way down, I seen a Greyhound bus that said Alice Springs. So I thought, we'll get far enough in that, and I should be able to jump on that to Alice Springs, And anyway, when we jumped on the bus, I never had the luggage on. My mate goes, "You got any bags?" I said, "No, my mate's up ahead. He's got it." And so overnight, I was watching this bus driver, and back then they sort of had car phones, like bus, and he was on that all night and looking in the room, and made me a bit paranoid, but there was much I could do. I was out in the middle of nowhere. And anyway, so throughout the night, we stopped at a place called Pine Creek, and I bought a pair of secondhand fucking hiking boots and a Cobra hat with the corks and that on it, and I Love Australia t-shirt, and I just sort of blended in. This bus driver was looking at me real soft, because I went from being a suave look dressed to this fucking backpacker. And so the next morning we pulled up in Alice Springs, and I purposely waited to be the last one off that bus. And overnight I'd been talking to this girl who was a backpacker, and I said, when we get to Alice Springs, I was cashed out. I said, we'll go and stay at some 5-star hotel. And she goes, yeah, sweet. And because she'd been roughing it for a bit as a backpacker. And anyway, so me and her jumped off. And as soon as I jumped off, all these coppers jumped all over me, like a task force jumped all over me. And I'm saying, "What are you doing, you bully?" I put on my best Swedish accent. I'm saying, "What are you doing? Get off me, get off me." And she's looking at me. I'm saying, "Helga."
Oh, God.
And she's looking at me like, "What the fuck? My name's not even Helga." And anyway, And then this old cop, and that no panic, and these coppers were panicking. I think we've got a diplomatic incident here, and we may be having a bit of trouble. And this old copper came up. He's an old boxing trainer, and he knows me. And he said, "Okay, Hans from Sweden." He's that old croaky voice. He said, "If you haven't got a fucking tattoo on your back and from Sweden, you're going to let you go. Then I'll give you a lift to wherever you got to go to." Lifted my shirt up, and there's the tattoo that he was looking for. He goes, "Okay, Russell." And I said, "Oh, nice try." He goes, "Nice try. These fucking numbskulls would have copped it." And to their embarrassment, you know, because they were panicking a bit. Anyway, long story, it took me back up to Darwin. And that was like redneck wonderland, that fucking Berrima prison back in the day, you know what I mean? They just thought they'll bash, you know, their purpose was to bash the fucking East Coaster out of me, the city slicker out of me. They thought it was their purpose that, oh, you know, it was the rednecks versus the city slickers, and you know, and because you're from the city, they automatically think you're gay. That's what they think. That's the fucking attitude. And, you know, not that I'm homophobic or not that being gay is a bad thing, but that's what they thought. And they go, "Yeah, you gay blokes from the city, we'll fucking prove to you." And they were fucking homophobic as such. And you know, I they were trying to set me up, and, you know, you know, like you lived in you ate in dining rooms, and I'd get some bloke to throw stuff out, and they'd tell me to pick the rubbish up. I'd say, "Yeah, fuck yourself, I'm not picking up someone else's rubbish." And then ended up getting locked in my cell for 2 weeks, and then I'd be out one day and I'd get old mate to do it again. So this time I seen him do it, and I just went, sweet. Come out, and I fucking bashed him. I give it to him. I said, "Fucking rat setting me up." But anyway, I ended up in high security unit, which consisted of a concrete fucking a concrete bed, and that was about it. And you had 23 hours in your cell a day, and it was normally in darkness, and often in darkness, and you know. So one day they turned up and they give me an offer. They said, we're willing to fucking fight you one-on-one. There's a few of us that want to have a crack at you one-on-one." And this was that fucking redneck mentality of these point to prove, you know. And I said, "Not a problem, let's go. Let's fucking go. Let's have a fucking crack one-on-one." And they come in there, got like a security camera. The broom goes under the brush and pushes it up to the top, so there's no video footage. And it was fucking cage of death fucking sort of shit. You know what I mean? It was fucking full scale. I'd come running out like a caged animal and attack. And, you know, initially it was fun, and it was sort of animalistic. It was sort of barbaric. And, you know, I was fucking loving it. Sort of like a blood sport type thing. And then the reality for me was how much control I was allowing to have these people to have over me, because in the end they'll get more joy out of it than I was, and the fun. I'll tell you what, the fun fucking stopped when I started losing. They started getting better and better, and started fucking beating me up and giving me some really fucking good kicking. So one day, you know, they opened up the cell, and and I sat on the bed. I said, "Oh, I'm not fucking doing this no more. You guys are getting too much fucking fun out of this." And they said, "That's all you have to do. All you have to do is surrender." I said, "I'm not surrendering. By no means am I surrendering. I'm just fucking not doing it anymore, because you're getting too much joy out of it. You're going home and you're thinking you're fucking something that you're not." And, you know, and I think it was back then that I realized, you know what I mean, you know, I just didn't want people to have that power over me. And I made a concerted effort to get off drugs and stay clean, and you know, and I went about it. And, you know, I got, one sec. Oh, sorry, mate.
No, you're
And I, you know, and I eventually got transferred down to, I got transferred back to New South Wales to face the music of my other charges, and I was sentenced to 15 years with a non-parole period of 8 years. You know, and you know, I eventually got released, and there's another funny story. You know, I got out one night, and I got a midnight release from Windsor Prison, and a girl picked me up in a limo. We went up to Oxford Street, which was predominantly gay clubs, but straight people were there too. And went in this club, and you know, I'm in this club, and you know, and the gay people thought it was my coming out party, but it was my getting out party. And we had a big bunch of people there, and it was so fucking funny. And people were coming up and saying, "When did you come out?" And I'd go, "Oh, you know, I come out tonight." And And I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, how does your family feel? I'd say, oh, they're so happy. I'm going to have lunch with them today. And yeah, we're going to celebrate. And they said, oh, that's so good. And then one of the blokes that was with me says, no, I think that you're coming out, pay. I felt like such an idiot. But anyway, long story short, I started to do all right. I moved to Queensland, and I started my little telemarketing business, and I met mother of my children. We had 2 kids. We bought a house at Currumbin Beach. I always wanted my kids to grow up near the beach, so I bought a house near Currumbin Beach. And I was focused, and it was that steely determination that I had from a young age to succeed, and I was doing it really well. I employed people, but the underlying issue of the abuse itself only had a band-aid on it, and it was always going to fester until I addressed it. I started drinking, which led me to snorting coke, and snorting coke made me back onto my drug of choice, which was heroin. And it wasn't long before I ended up back in prison. And 10 years. It took me 10 years to sort of come back. It took me about 10 years before I actually got to come back. But I did it. I did it. And what was the changing point for me is, look, I'd done a series of bank robberies in 2013, early 2014, and then I came back to prison. I got pinched coming out of a bank in Coolangatta, and a bunch of super citizens tackled me, and they tackled me, and one of them said, "I just saved your life," and I didn't really see it until years later that he was right, and I'll touch on that a bit later, but I went back to Arthur Gorrie Correctional Centre, and I had every intention. I was just so badly beaten, had every intentions of killing myself, and I got to my cell that night, and the coaxial cable that I wouldn't have killed myself. And this is where I believe this was a universe job. From here on in, it was universal what started happening to me. And then someone had sabotaged it and cut it down so it wouldn't wrap around my little tail, let alone big around my neck. And then the next day, they've got like a little display window in the cell door where the prison officers can check up on you overnight time and see if you're there. And a bloke who'd come up to me, who I suspected of being a sex offender, and was later confirmed. He always denied it. No, I'm in for fucking armed robbery. I'm in for this. Was later confirmed. And he offered me, he goes, I know you've never liked me in the past, but I'm willing to offer you a shot as a sort of a token of peace. And I just looked at him, and I think this is where it all started for me. And I banged on the window, and I said, oh, no matter how bad or tough I felt, or fucking how rotten life was for me, I could never take anything off you because you're a piece of shit. And I said, I should bash you for even offering me. And off he went on his merry way. And then I went out in unit, and there was a young fella there that was got a bunch of books out, and he's studying. And I said, what are you doing? And he goes, I took your advice all those years ago. And he said, I'm studying. He said, I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm studying psych. And he looked me up and down with disdain. Said, maybe you should take a bit of your own advice. And I went, ooh, that one hurt. And then I got caught out for a legal visit. And a mate of mine, Nick Dorr, was had a good law practice, and he said, "What do you?" He goes, "How?" And I told him in my head, I said, "Mate, I'm not doing this, Nick." He goes, "Mate, you got it." And he was really encouraging. He said, "Mate, you got it in you." He said, "How about I'll get you, he said, maximum I'll get you is 4 years on the bottom, then I have to serve you." And I thought, fuck, I could do that. I could do 4. And I'd only just finished doing 4. Like I was only out for 12 months after doing 4, but I could back up and do another 4. And so I went from that, and the seed of hope was planted in me on a few things. So, morally, I thought, fucking, I wouldn't take something, not taking something off a sex offender made me feel good. Giving some kid some advice that changed the trajectory of his life for the better, made me feel good about myself. I wasn't going to do that long. And I said, fuck it. You know what? I'm going to make a decision to fucking live 110%. So that includes addressing the abuse, staying drug free, and having a goal. And I said about it, it was just funny, I got a TV that night, and the first thing that came on was the 7:30 report, and they talked about the Royal Commission Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse, and they were going after George Pell and Brian Houston. And I thought, these must be fair income if they're doing that. So now's the time to tell. I'm going to tell my story to them, and I got their address, wrote them a foolscap page, and forgot all about it. 2 weeks later, they called me out, and this is where the healing started to begin, because I told a bit of my story, and they said, look, we believe you, and your name has been mentioned. We were going to get in contact with you anyway. Your name has been mentioned. and by other people, and you know, and then from that little interview, they took me straight into trauma counseling. I had trauma counseling with this amazing English woman who I don't even know what she looked like, but I'd done trauma counseling with her for 4 years, you know, and then I got sentenced. I got 3.5 years that my mate promised me I'd get, and you know, and then I went to a sentence jail, and you know, I was in that sentence jail, and when you're in a prison yard, there's like 40, maybe between 50 and 65 blokes in the one yard, so everyone knows what everyone's talking about on the phone. Johnny's son kicked 2 goals in soccer or whatever, and fucking whatever, bowling or whatever. So everyone knows. So everyone's sitting around waiting for the phone, and a couple of young blokes, uneducated young blokes, are thinking that I'm up to no good the way I was talking on the phone. And so I had to call a yard meeting. So in front of 60 blokes, I had to say, listen, I'm here. The reason why I'm not talking to coppers on that phone. I'm talking to the Royal Commission about something bad that happened to me, and I want to change my life. I want to fucking stop being this fucking dog shit. No disrespect to you guys. I just don't want to be around you no more. I want a better life, and I don't want these screws with fucking bad attitudes and even worse breath having fucking the say in my life. And you know, and man, you know, and the reception I got was really good. Blokes clapped and fucking, you know, and you know, and I was getting notes, and normally you get a note, and old mate goes, come out in the Oval, and you go out in the Oval like some tough cunt walking on his own, and you wanted to have a chat with you, and you think, fuck, that's normally a declaration of war. Someone wants to fight you, you know. So you go out there, and he's got steel cap boots on. It's always a bad sign too, and you go out there, and he goes, mate, you know, the bloke's in tears. He goes, mate, I don't want you to tell anyone, but it happened to me too, and how do we go about it? And so I left that jail, and I helped 48 blokes contact the Royal Commission. And, you know, when I'd done my private session with the Royal Commission, which consists of going in a room and reciting your story to the Royal Commission, they recognised that I've been an advocate for the Royal Commission. So, you know, and the seeds of the Voice of Survival, which is my company, were planted, you know. And Q, can you just turn that down a little bit, please? Thanks, mate. Anyway, and I realised I just had this gift that people felt safe in telling me their stories. So, you know, and I created a trauma-informed platform for people to tell their story. So long story short, I got transferred to New South Wales. You know, I'd served 4 years, I had 2 weeks to go, and the good old coppers turned up with 6 old bank robberies when I was parole granted, going to rehab. I said, we've got some old charges for you. And I think it was a big, for them at that time, I just took it this way. They didn't like me talking to the Royal Commission. That's how I took it. And I've never had anything that'll teach me otherwise. Anyway, so, you know, things come through for me. I got my compensation claim, and I could afford the things that changed for me. As I could afford justice. You know, you're as good as the lawyer that you can buy, and so I got a decent lawyer, and he got me out on bail to a rehab. I went to a rehab at Coffs Harbour called Adele House. I'd done 3 months, and it was a really good rehab for me because it was like a lot of rehabs don't like you exercising. They think it's jail behavior. This one encouraged training, so it was a really good place for me. And, you know, upon completion of that program, they pulled me in the office and offered me the general manager's job. And they said, mate, you know, you come here, you got the more recovery knowledge here. And they said, we'll give you the general manager's job, which I declined. And, you know, because I always had every intention of getting out and setting up the Voice of Survivor. And, you know, I started humble beginnings on a barbecue table on a 1-bedroom flat in Coffs Harbour. And, you know, I was a learning curve. I didn't know how to use computers. And you know what? I was very trusting. I trusted people initially that weren't worthy of trust, because everyone just seen what I was doing. They go, fucking look, this is a gold mine. I had women coming in going, this is a fucking, in particular, 2 women worked for me, stole everything, all my intellectual property, and went off and started their own and tried to bag me and tried to say I wasn't a survivor and everything. Like, just that's what they do. But you know, today we've got a really big office, and we employ, you know, a few people, and we've got 16,500 clients. And, I've worked hard, man. Like, well, I got out with a goal, and the goal was I was going to work 2 years straight. I was going to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 years, and then go and just see where I was at. And I've done that. I think I got to have because I had my kids one Christmas, had one Christmas day off, and but I just worked and worked and worked, and it just took off. And when people realised what I was doing, I was just, man, just an influx of work, and very rewarding, but very taxing at the same time. I didn't realise at the time how much it was taking out of me. I went to court. I went to court for the charges. God, man. Sorry, man.
Yeah, you're
I went to court for the charges, and I went to court for the charges, and the first time in my life, a judge sort of recognised the work. He said, you had things happen to you that were out of control, that send you on a trajectory of crime, and he goes, I don't believe you would have been doing these things if it wasn't for the abuse that happened to you. And he recognised. He said, you used to be an enemy of the state. Now you're an asset to the community. He goes, I'll be doing the community a massive disservice by sending you back to prison. And he goes, I'm working every way I can for you not to go to prison, because it wouldn't serve anyone. And I thought, fuck, why didn't this happen in the first place? But anyway, it didn't, and that's the way it panned out. And that's part of the story. And it's been a long journey, man. It's been a long journey. It taxed me. It took its toll on me. For this work, I paid a high price. It's I've been a fucking attacked by like the government, like in particularly Queensland. I upset a lot of lawyers up there because I was making them accountable, and I was saying, man, you can't charge people this. You know what I mean? I'd become someone that people would trust before they trust lawyers, and they wanted to come through us because they knew we had their backs. And they ganged up in Queensland. They even had a parliamentary inquiry where they told a fucking heap of lies. We never give us a chance to respond. So Queensland's now become impossible for survivors who have done prison to get justice, and it's rank. It's so fucking rotten. It's so fucking rotten. The Royal Commission should have said, we're going to have a Royal Commission, but it doesn't apply to Queensland because they'll make up their own laws and rules and everything like that. It's disgusting, man, what they've done up there for survivors. But
with your clients, Russell, so you said you got 13,000 or 16,000?
16,000, yeah.
So do they range from sexual abuse, physical abuse, or is it just like sexual abuse? What's it range from?
Specifically sexual abuse. Some really horrendous physical abuse too, where someone's been hospitalized, but not many. It's 99% fucking sexual abuse. An institution can be schools, churches of all denominations, facts, docs, foster care, sporting groups, boys' homes, girl guides, boys' homes, girls' homes. So it's an array of places that it took place in camps and all sorts of stuff. And and it took its toll on that. I've had that a month off here and there and go not so much just a retreat sort of stuff. That's happened to me twice in the past 6 years. And but that's self-preservation. I mean, I'll do it in a heartbeat. And it's been hard on relationships because I've got this work ethic. I've got this work ethic where I don't know, man, I stop work when I'm tired.
Yeah.
I just see every opportunity, I'll work till 10 o'clock tonight.
Yeah. How does it feel to have that many people that you're representing, basically, that have been through similar shit that you went through that is horrendous? How does that feel that you're leading the way and you're a leader in this field now?
Yeah, I look, it's very rewarding. I love it. I've got an ego just the same as anyone else, but I love the fact that I'm taking a part and helping people create good memories. I'm taking a part and helping people heal and not live in so much pain, anger, and confusion. I feel grateful, and it's gratitude that I have. It's gratitude that I have. I'm very grateful. I do a lot of work on gratitude, because with gratitude, you can't be grateful and angry. You can't be grateful and have a resentment. You can't be fucking grateful and sad at the same time. Gratitude's the key to my whole. So I'm very grateful. I think I feel blessed that I've been given a gift by the universe that allows me to work in this field, and I've met some amazing and interesting people along the way, and it's just such, man, it's just amazing for me, just having that purpose and the passion and the drive to go with it, and that combination for me is just what makes me tick, and I love it. I love getting out of bed in the morning. I get out of bed, I'll do my gratitude list, I'll do my intentions for the day, cold shower, and then I go and sit down at a fucking cafe where all the construction workers are. And it makes me grateful that I'm not on a fucking building site sweating my ass off all day, you know, and I'm grateful that I'm doing the work that I love, and I'm grateful that I've created a lifestyle that suits me, that doesn't involve hurting anyone, and it only involves helping people. And you know, and I get to meet some amazing people. So yeah, a lot of gratitude, man. You know, and as I said, I talk to a lot of people. I meet a lot of interesting people out, whether it's out on the street or, you know, massive on social media. Massive on social media where I get to talk and engage with people and try to inspire. And you know, going to schools and talking in schools and boys' homes and stuff like that, that's so rewarding that I can do that. That I can do that and have that impact on them kids, and you know what I mean, and hopefully change a few lives along the way. And you know, it's a good life, man.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. Do you know, like I was just thinking, so with what happened at 14,
Yeah,
do you think, and I think we spoke about this last time, but do you think the things that happened, the sexual abuse at 14, 16, and whatever else you went through, and then that grew that trauma, that void inside of you, was that the main driver? Because was that the main driver for the bank robberies and
100%.
drugs? Yeah, yeah,
Oh, look, you know, there was an action factor to it too. You know, there was
yeah.
something, kid, and something I always wanted to do.
Mm.
But you know, but what happens? The magnetic quality to the magnetic event to that was I fucking wanted to get fucking clubbed on heroin and a big bag of fucking one. Man,
Messages come through.
yeah, yeah. I wanted a big bag of heroin. So I wanted a big bag of heroin so I could fucking be numb. I just wanted to be
Yeah,
numb. I just wanted to be numb, and I knew if I robbed some banks, I could live this fucking. I could fucking have some reprieve from the fucking madness of it all.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
and
I know when you said you were aspiring to be, you know, doing banks and that, but it kind of sounds like, yeah, you probably would have done that anyways, but it helped you deal with the trauma as well.
100%, 100%. It was like it's just I don't know. I think more so, you know, the look. I think I don't know. I think I much would have robbed the bank eventually. I think I have no doubt about it, but it was expedited by the fact that I was in so much fucking pain and trauma.
Mm.
And you know, and it sort of brought on a lot quicker than it ever would have happened. And you know, and when I did it, you know, I might have robbed the bank for the first time and went, yeah, fucking done that. That's it. But when you go, okay, I can go and buy a fucking big bag of heroin, or I can be clubbed for fucking, and then you're hanging out, you're getting sick from the heroin. Well, there's a motivation to fucking go again and keep going and keep going. Because when you're a heroin addict, the biggest fear that you have is hitting withdrawals.
Mm.
And because it hurts, it's very painful, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And you top that with the abuse and the trauma, mix that in together. It's a fucking cyclone of fucking pain and anger and hurt.
Mm.
So what happens is, you know, that the drive to do one and not be there, to rob a bank and not be in that sort of state is fucking phenomenal.
Mm. Yeah. So when you're doing it, is the adrenaline, what was it like? Can you describe the feeling of doing the
Well,
bank
if you
robbery?
jumped out of a plane, an airplane, it's
Yep,
like
I have. Yep, yeah.
a pain. I
Same as
don't know.
that?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, it's like having a fucking bomb, and it's like jumping out of a plane on super cocaine. It's like fucking. You know, people say to me about, well, I've done both, and I think it's fucking. I remember doing my first skydive at Great Keppel Island. I was thinking to myself, got nothing. Like it was fun, but I had nothing on robbing a bank. The adrenaline, because you know, you come out of the bank and you don't know if your head's going to get blown off. Because when we were robbing them, Roger Rogerson and his team were killing people. You know what I mean? So there was that sort of fucking added bonus of excitement when I was doing them. And yeah, it was crazy, crazy times, man. It was crazy times. And you know, I can talk about this freely now. I'm not glorifying or anything like that, because you can't do them no more. They don't happen.
Yeah.
It's like and
They don't keep cash there, do they? Oh, they do, but they
if
very little.
you like to get 2 grand if you rob one these days,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
get 10 years to go with it. So you're better off getting a job at McDonald's and working there for the week, and more lucrative. Um, but yeah, that was that, man. And you know, but today I'm far away from that. I live a good life, and like I said, I do what I do now is rewarding. I live. I've got a motto: I give more than I take, and life's been really, really kind to me. But I say to young people, man, anyone that's going through that trauma, man, fucking start talking. If anyone's got suicidal ideology, man, start talking, man. Let someone know what's going on, Because I say this, a perpetrator's greatest weapon is victim silence and shame, And I think what we do is we disempower perpetrators by talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
We make a safer community by talking about this stuff, Given an abuse survivor a 20-year jail sentence is like getting a car, smashing it all up, pushing it into a garage, pulling it out in 20 years' time and thinking it's going to be a better car.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work. So what we do is when the car breaks down, we lift the bonnet up, as in a survivor, and we start working out through trauma counselling what the problem is, and let's work on what's under the motor, and let's work on that. Let's solve that, and I guarantee you won't need to lock them up for 20 years and waste the taxpayers' money and all those sorts of things. Because if you deal with the trauma, you'll deal with the drug addiction. If you're dealing with the trauma, 90% of the drug addiction's dealt with, because that's the underlying issue of the offending behavior. That's the underlying issue of the drug addiction.
Yeah.
And once you fill that void with the proper counselling and stuff like that, you're a long way along. And I say that, man, you want to reduce crime rates, don't lock them up. Let's do the real stuff. I hear politicians at election time, let's get tough on crime. Well, let's get tough on trauma.
Yes.
Let's fucking work on the trauma. Let's not worry about the crime. The crime's just a byproduct of the trauma.
Yeah. With your trauma, what did you recognize? Was it the shame that was driving it? Was it Yeah.
And it's shame and embarrassment, and thinking that that you caused it, and fucking and you're challenging your sexuality and stuff like knowing full well I'm a heterosexual. Nothing. I'm not, man. I'm not homophobic. Homosexual friends, but I was just challenging my sexuality and going, did I bring that on? Does that bloke think I'm this? Does that bloke, It was crazy. It was a crazy time. And now, after a long period of time, I know I didn't deserve that. As much as that judge sentenced me to 12 months, knowing full well what was going to happen because he thought I deserved that. Because I carried a lot of resentment and anger and that towards those sorts of people for a long time. I don't now. They don't. I'll say this. Forgiveness is the gift that you give to yourself. I forgive them so I can have peace from it. I don't forgive because I want them to have peace for it. I forgive them because that naturally doesn't bother them. And they wouldn't even know who my name is or whatever. But I forgive them so I can have peace from it. And that's one of the biggest lessons I could teach a person today. No matter how much you're anger and that it's or carry resentment towards a person, you got to forgive them to be able to and be able.
There's that saying that drinking resentment is having resentment is like drinking poison and wanting them to fucking die.
Yeah, it's true, and that and a resentment will rust the vessel it's contained in. All of that, man, and I didn't want that stuff, and I've worked really hard with that sort of stuff to have the peace. Like, I'm a pretty peaceful place these days. I still have triggers and I still have bad days and I still doubt myself, and but I'm in a lot better place today than I was back then, and and I wouldn't, I feel so blessed now. I feel blessed in a lot of ways the lifestyle I have, but I feel blessed for the work that I can do. And I feel blessed for the strength, the trust that people entrust in me by telling their stories, because I talk about this. I said, if you can't fucking talk for you, if you can't fight, I'll fight for you. If you can't speak up, I'll speak up for you. And you know what I mean? And fucking let me just fucking tell me a story, move over and I'll do your fighting for you, because I'm strong enough. I can take these people. They don't scare me, they don't intimidate me. And I'm in a good place where, and I'm here to help you. And, what I mean? Fucking, I'm side by side with fucking 16,500 people saying, fucking, let's put an end. Let's change this. Let's create a culture where people do report this sort of stuff. People do talk about this stuff. We will take away the stigma, shame out of this stuff and hand it back to its rightful owners, the perpetrators themselves.
Yeah. Very inspiring. How do we change the system, like especially in the prison? because I know people that are just fucking stuck in that prison life, and they get
Yeah.
worse and worse. Because
We're going to have an open mind, don't There's got to be a community accountability, doesn't there? Like, you know, you look at Norway, that's got the lowest recidivism rates, return to prison rates in the world, and there's community accountability. It's about the community going, hey, how come this ain't working? You know what I mean? How come it ain't working? And when the community, we steer away from this fucking Ray Hadley, fucking Alan Jones type of, we've got to get tough on crime, we've got to give out bigger jail sentences, we've got to traumatize already traumatized people. Once we steer away from, let's work out, how do we help these traumatized people? You show me a person with a propensity for violence, and I'll show you a person that's highly traumatized. Because violence is a byproduct of trauma.
Yeah.
You know, and I talk about it. I talk about, you know, to people, I talk to people about, especially people with propensity for violence. Human beings and pressure cookers are the same thing, yeah? The pressure cooker's got a release valve at the top, which will stop it from exploding. Human beings have got eyes and a mouth. A pressure cooker, it gets fucking that pressure out and the steam starts coming out the release valve. A human being starts getting pressure, it should cry or verbalize it, you know. And then I talk about, so you learn to cry. To be able to cry, you've got to be able to become vulnerable. And how do you become vulnerable? You've got to trust people, right? And I talk to these guys and I say, so, you know, you've got to be vulnerable. You've got to start talking about how you feel. He goes, yeah. And they go, but yeah, you've got to trust someone. I say, okay, so what's in trust? Oh, what happens if they think I'm a dickhead? You've got a propensity for violence. Don't be a dickhead to think that you're fucking weak. And then you look at it this way: if you're being shown true strength of character by showing your emotion, and someone thinks they're weak, give them a hug. Give them a hug, because they're the weak ones that don't identify your strengths.
Yeah.
You know, I explain this concept to people with violence. They really fucking get it. And when I talk about, like, you know, how it works for me and everything like that, they get it. And, you know, and it's just unfortunate. People like fucking Ray Hadley and those sorts of people have too much of a say. These social commentators have too much of a say in things they know nothing about. It's sad. It's sad. But hopefully through social media, the beauty about social media is it's another opinion. So, you know, instead of just listening to fucking someone like Hadley's opinion, you're getting a second opinion of someone who actually has got lived experience. And lived experience is becoming a big thing. I know corrective services, in particular in New South Wales, I'll never be in Queensland. That fucking joint is it's a Joby Peterson is alive and well in Queensland, let me tell you. And nothing's too good for their prisoners, and nothing's what they'll get. And they're always going to have problems up there until that attitude changes, you know. It's a fucking Labor government up there, for God's sake. And they're fucking acting like the fucking National Party. But and you know, in New South Wales, we're starting to get in, and we're starting to, you know, get invited into the schools, get invited into the boys' homes, get invited into the prisons to start talking about this and change this. I don't know, this culture of men not talking about stuff and not telling how they feel. You know, this fucking, it's weak, men don't cry and all that sort of shit. Shit's got to stop, because it's killing so many fucking men. Men are suicide 3 to 1 over women. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they think it's fucking weak to speak. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think, like, let's say Mount Druitt, you're growing up, how does a kid in Mount Druitt be vulnerable when other kids aren't? Like, what do you do in that situation? Because we know being vulnerable and speaking up is fucking important. But what if kids, what do they do when they don't have that around?
Yeah, that's a really a good question, but it's about, you know, it's about, I don't know, for me, it's about creating them options. It's about sending people like myself or my mates, sending them out there to talk to these kids and knowing, you know, spreading the message. I think it's in the message.
Yeah.
It's in itself. It's getting the message out. When these kids hear the message that it's okay to talk like this or be vulnerable and that, they're more inclined to investigate it. Might investigate it there and then, but once that, you know, that's available to them, you know, you've got to let them know it's available to them initially. That's the hardest part, is actually getting the message to them, to let them know that they can speak. And, you know, when you do, man, it opens the door. Like, I done a talk at this school a few weeks ago, and I just identified this one kid, and I knew he was going to contact me, and he's contacted me. Yeah, he's going to contact me. So, yeah, I don't know. It's so fucking rewarding when you can when you can play a part in someone's healing. It's just, man, it's more addictive than heroin.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of getting at. I think what you're doing is the thing that kids need, because you're not some psychologist. You're not some dude that went to fucking uni and knows all this. You're a very lived experience guy. Mount Druitt, 23 years in prison, bank robber, ex-heroin addict. You've done all these things that, some kids would look up to, but you're
Yeah,
here as a survivor, fucking helping other kids and saying, being vulnerable, and you're showing emotion. You're leading the way, and I believe you and other people who have been through what you've been through are the change. So that's why it's
yeah.
very fucking inspiring.
I think this is where it is. There's good guys around, like, TikTok Gary, my mate's jumped on. A couple of mates of mine have jumped on. Jeff Morgan is a really good guy. Danny Shannon, the Q Star. There's some really good guys around there sharing their stories, and Strev's story. And for me, I've been given a gift, and the only way I can keep what I've got is by giving it away. It's a cliche from Narcotics Anonymous, but I swear by it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. What would you say? What would you say to like young boys going down that road where they've probably been through trauma, or they've been through shit, and they're looking to escape with violence and illegal stuff? What would you say to them? Like, what's your advice to them?
Life, it's a lonely old life of a criminal, man. I'm telling you. Where a lot of those blokes do those big sentences, they won't tell you they cry themselves to sleep. That's the part they keep out. It's a lonely old life. There's so much. I've never seen a better time for a young bloke to make a buck these days with social media. There's so much work around. I've never seen a better time for someone to make a buck. But look, it's not all about bucks. It's about that emotional stuff and dealing with identity. I think, if your mates fucking want to do crime, fucking leave him with it. If you're a sportsman and you're sitting, making the commitment to stay at home and everything like that, and it looks all exciting that the boys are out there on a drink and everything like that, mate, wait until you're an NRL star. Wait until you're kicking goals and they're fucking. Wait until you're in your 30s and you own your own home and everything like that, and these blokes are struggling, still doing the same old shit. It's, man, real strength comes from standing out from the crowd and going, man, that's not kosher. I don't want that. That's where the real strength is. The real man is the hero. The real hero is the working man that jumps up rain, hole, or shine to put up food put food on the table for their kids. Mate, the real hero is the bloke that's committed and saying, "Nah, fuck you," and that's not right. I don't want that.
I love that. Last question. If you had your 15-year-old version, so Russell at 15, he was sitting right next to you, what would your advice be to him, and what would you give him? What would he need from you, you think?
Yeah, I think, the reality is of that lifestyle, man, it's fucking that's not glorious at all. It's very fucking painful. It's very painful. You hurt a lot of people, including yourself, along the way. You pay, it looks good, but the price you pay from it is you won't comprehend the price until you've done it. And it definitely ain't worth it, and, man, back yourself. Just back your ability to make money another way. You know what I mean? I was one of those kids, like my parents used to say, if you get a job in a factory and you become a leading hand, that's the best you're going to be. And I used to think, fuck, I'm going to own the factory,
Mm.
and I'm going to own the fucking 6 factories next to it. That was always and I was always told I was a daydreamer. And I actually, and you know what, what I was back then is celebrated now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how things changed in time. But yeah, just fucking back yourself, man. Don't worry about taking shortcuts. Shortcuts fucking, you get nothing out of shortcuts, and back yourself.
Yeah, love that. Love that. So where can people find you? And I think, did you say you got a book out last time, or?
Voice of the Survivor. You can get that at www.thevoiceofthesurvivor on our website. I'm going to redo that again later this year, but I think I can do it better. But you can catch me on Russell_Manser on TikTok and Instagram, Russell Manser on Facebook, and just drop in and say hello. And man, I love to hear from you. I'll answer every single message and text I get.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for today. I appreciate doing the second time. It's very inspiring.
All
And
good.
yeah, we'll speak to
Let
you
me know
later.
let me know when it's out, and let's spread the love.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again. Cheers.
No worries. Thank you, brother.
Thanks for watching this episode of Hearts of Men. I really appreciate it. If you could give back and give a like, a comment, a share, a review on any of the platforms you're watching on, that would really help me get my message out to more men. If you don't follow me on socials, please follow me, Aaron Cartwright, All Things Healing on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks, guys. See you on the next episode.